गायते छंद भगत वृंद आरती तुम्हार, गायते छंद भगत वृंद आरती तुम्हार, जय जय आरती तुम्हार, हर हर आरती तुम्हार, शिव शिव आरती तुम्हार। खंडन भवबंधन जगवंदन वंदे तुम्हार। जय श्री गुरु महाराज जी की जय। ओम ह्रीं ह्रीतं तुम चलो गुण जीत गुणेठा, नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पादपद्मं, मोहं कषं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं, तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो। भक्तिर्भगश भजनं भवभेदकारी, गच्छं त्यलं सुविपुलं गमनाय, तत्त्वं वक्रोद्धृतोऽपि हृदये न च भाति किञ्चित्, तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो। तेजस्तरन्ति तरसा त्वयि तृप्त तृष्णा, रागे कृते ऋतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे, मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणो नाशं, तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो। कृत्यं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारी, स्नान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नाथ, यस्मादहं तुशरणो जगदेकगम्य, तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो। ॐ सा नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। सर्वमंगल मांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। सृष्टि स्थिति विनाशानां शक्ति भूते सनातनी गुणाश्रये गुणमये नारायणी नमोस्तुते। शरणागत दीनार्त परित्राण परायणे सर्वस्यार्थे हरे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय 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 महामाई की जय। जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय। जय स्वामी कृपामयी नमोऽस्तु ते लज्जापटावृते नित्यं शारदे ज्ञानदायिके पापेभ्यो न सदा रक्ष कृपामयी नमोऽस्तु ते रामकृष्णगतप्राणां तन्नाम श्रवणप्रिया तद्भावरञ्जिताकारा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः पवित्रं चरितं यस्य पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिणे तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः देवीं प्रसन्नां प्रणतात्रिहन्त्री योगीन्द्रपूजा युगधर्मपात्रे तां शारदां भक्तिविज्ञानदात्री दयास्वरूपा प्रणमामि नित्यं स्नेहेन वन्दास्मनोस्मदीयं दोषानशेषा सगुणीकरोषि अहेतुनानोदयसे सदोषा स्वाङ्गे गृहीत्वा यदिदं विचित्रं प्रसीद मात विनयेन याते नित्यं भव स्नेहवतेषु तेषु प्रेमैकबिन्दु चिरदग्धचित्ते विषिञ्चचित्तं कुरु न सुशान्तं जननीं शारदां देवी रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रीत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः
Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchit Sukhasvarupaya Swamine Tapaharane. So we'll continue with this lecture of Swami Vivekananda, Realization, which contains a free translation of the Kathopanishad. And last time, for some reason, there was a bit of a glitch in the live YouTube recording. So we'll quickly go through what we did last time and then begin today's thing in earnest. So last time, I think what we did was essentially a free translation in the lecture by Swami Vivekananda of these two verses, the first two or three verses of the second canto of part 1 of the Kathopanishad, of which the crucial one was this one, Shreyascha Preyascha Manushyameta Tau Samparitya Vivinakti Dhiraha Shreyo hi Dhiro bhi Priyasa Vrinite Preyo Mando Yogakshemat Vrinite. So this is really the beginning, as we've said this a number of times, but it bears repetition. This is really an answer to this question, which is the central question that the Kathopanishad addresses. Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushe astiti eke nayam astiti chaike. I mean, after death, does one exist? Does one not exist? This is the question that was posed. And the answer is given in this form, that which is the pleasant or that which is desirable and that which leads to perfection or that which is the good are two different things. And we've stressed this, but I was requested to revise this today, so I'm doing that. See, essentially, if the quest is for the true and the good, then it's in some sense a longer term, a deeper query, and it cannot be handled by the more superficial query of that which is merely pleasant. That's what is being talked about here. Yeah? So if somebody is really interested in this answer, these fundamental questions about existence, etc., what exactly is it that dies at death? Not in terms of narrative, not in terms of stories, not in terms of mythology, not in terms of theology, but in truth. Then they need to develop a quality of mind which is called this dhi. So one who is equipped with this dhi is called dhiraha. So dhi, again, as we've said before, it's basically our personality needs to be integrated. Our intellectual convictions are supposed to be in consonance, are supposed to be in harmony with that which we feel, A. And second, that needs to be carried out in action, which means these three faculties, thinking, feeling, and willing, are supposed to be consistent with each other, and that's what leads to an integrated personality. Our brains are well developed and as a species, and we can conceive of various intellectual possibilities, but if they are not felt and they are not carried out, if we aren't willing to act on the basis of those thoughts, those convictions, and which means it presupposes that we feel these things to be true, not just think them to be true, and then proceed in terms of action. If this kind of integration is not there, then what will happen is that our emotions and feelings and actions will go in one direction, our intellect will go in another. So what's most important is this integration of personality. Yeah? And it's exactly this particular quality that leads to quality in people called integrity. Yeah, integrity is not just honesty. It's something deeper. I mean, saying something that you believe to be true is frequently interpreted as honesty, but how does one act? I mean, so very often there's a price to pay for one's convictions. The price is often paid in terms of certain comforts that one forsakes. And the willingness to undergo tribulations or what would be often regarded as pain for the greater satisfaction of having lived according to one's convictions is exactly what integrity is about. And I think we have mentioned here the example of Gandhi, who around the time that there were these communal riots, 46 in Bengal, Calcutta, and then Noakhali. This is the 78-year-old man without any protection, refused any protection, refused any armed protection, and moved through these riot-torn areas where he could have been killed by any community, but such was the person's conviction in the strength of nonviolence, in the strength of what we call ahimsa. He walked through that, and it is this particular gesture. It's not for 1 hour, 2 hours. I mean, I think one simple thing that we can ask ourselves in order to see what kind of resolve this is about is to ask ourselves, suppose there is some place in some city where there is some unrest going on, maybe communal, maybe otherwise. How many of us have that strength of conviction to walk into such an area unarmed and have no fear? Yeah? See, essentially, this gesture, walking through riot-torn areas for 18 days, it can't come all of a sudden. It's an act, but that act is based on a lifetime led on the basis of certain convictions. It's that which leads to this kind of integrity in a person. It is possible that we can agree or disagree, but the integrity of the personality as exemplified by this kind of an act is something that is indubitable. Yeah? So it's not something that one can argue against. So this is really what is being talked about here, and it's a quality that other personalities recognized. Swami Turiyananda in the context of the Ramakrishna Mission, Raman Maharshi in another sage. I mean, these are people who recognize this integrity in Gandhi. I'll just repeat one more anecdote which I'm familiar with, one of the 13th president of the Ramakrishna Mission was Swami Ranganathananda, and we were discussing this with some of our brother monks just yesterday. So he was in Rangoon in around the time that the Second World War was breaking out, and it was a hospital center where there were places for treating patients, and that place had been bombed. Yeah. And essentially, people had told him that, look, it's now the war's breaking out. It's time for you to walk back to India, to travel back to India. And he was offered a steamer ticket. In those days, steamers or these small ships were the usual means of travel. This is in the 40s, early 40s. His response to that was, look, the other people who are fleeing the country at this stage are doing so on foot. And here I am actually talking about this equality amongst people. How am I to accept this special privilege when other people are walking through forests without any protection and no amenities? I will have to be one with them, which means I will have to go through the same experience that these people are going through. So he refused the ticket. and walked with them. Now, walking from Rangoon to India is not something that is for the faint-hearted. What happened on the way was that he had to walk through a jungle. I mean, there's a lot of the road was through a jungle, and there wasn't medical. I mean, there weren't medical facilities available, which means that people were dying of cholera around him. He had some little medication which he put in the mouths of these people around, and then by the time he reached India, he's a tall man, close to 6 feet. His weight had been reduced to something like 39 kilos or thereabouts. So, and on the way, there were people who had actually died of cholera. So when one is actually saying that I'll walk with these people and put into practice that which we believe in, that means the service of other people as equals, this is not something that is just a casual thing that one talks about. It's only when that is carried out in practice that it lends this particular quality of integrity to a person's character. It does not matter at a certain level, ideology or belief systems, theology, etc., are very superficial things in comparison. And what this particular verse of the Kathopanishad stresses is precisely this quality of integrity, where thinking, feeling, and willing are in harmony, in sync with each other, which means that the personality responds with strength to live one's convictions, carry out one's convictions in practice. It's precisely this that leads to such people, when they talk about such things, there is not necessarily something which is, their lectures need not be things of great oratorial excellence. Though Ranganathanji himself was a great orator, but it's not necessary. However, the impact that the words of such people make is tremendous. Again, essentially, when Gandhi fasts because he wants the country to give up violence, people who are there in riot-torn areas listen to him. What is it that is there in the man's personality that affects even violent people? People who are habituated in carrying out some kind of violent act, perhaps the killing of others, for the sake of their own belief system or for the sake of preserving their own group. It's precisely this. Instinctively we recognize that here is something which is a conviction, which is something that all of us aspire for or aspire to at a certain level. And it's this integrity of the person shining through his acts, not necessarily through his words, not necessarily through his emotions, that stirs us to bow down in front of such great personalities. And essentially, what is it? It's just bowing down is a very cheap thing, but essentially recognizing that it is this that we covet more than anything else. It doesn't matter what the particulars of that conviction are, but instinctively we recognize something that defines greatness or nobility in a human being. And it is this greatness and nobility reflected in action that inspires us to imbibe such qualities in ourselves. It doesn't mean that we will have to imitate them or even emulate them. But it means that we recognize this quality of head and heart and hands, basically all these things carried out in sync, carried out in practice, recognized, and then we start investigating through this introspective analysis into ourselves and try to bring forth this quality of integrity in ourselves. Without this quality, a question that has been posed here, does one exist at death, or what exists at death, what vanishes at death? Such a question just cannot be answered. Why? Because in order to arrive at a genuine answer to this question, the quality of mind that is necessary is exactly this integrity. Another example I would like to cite in this context is that of Bhagat Singh, whose political beliefs might have been very different. But in terms of integrity, this man shared that same quality. He was offered, basically, I think there was a prospect of his being freed, not being executed for what was perceived as activity against the then British Empire. He refused that, basically because he felt that this giving up of his life would inspire people to work harder and work with more conviction for the freedom of his motherland. And so while Gandhi himself was a very religious man, Bhagat Singh was the complete opposite. In jail, he wrote an article, Why I Am an Atheist. And in it, and subsequently, he said that, which means basically he did not have any belief in this kind of theological thing in terms of the hereafter. But he said that, and there's this famous quote of his, which I'm just paraphrasing at this stage. Without hope for the here or hereafter, I give up my life for love of country because I could not do otherwise. Now you take this person's statement and then you look at Vivekananda's Karma Yoga, and he says, it's action for its own sake. There is no expectation of any reward. What kind of integrity? So does it matter at that stage what kind of theological convictions, what kind of ideological beliefs the person has? What we detect in such great personalities is this one quality that is common, which is integrity, which means it does not matter really what one's intellectual convictions are, what one's theological belief systems are. Those are much too superficial. But it's essentially this belief felt and executed in action leads to this quality of integrity in a person. And it is this integrity which is referred to, this faculty which integrates all our thoughts, feelings, and actions together. That integrated faculty of the mind is referred to as dhi or buddhi in Vedanta. And a person who is equipped with that quality is called dhiraha. Yeah, so here is the thing, when Yama starts answering Nachiketa's question, he basically emphasizes this one quality above everything else, because without this quality of mind, the answer to this question cannot really be sought. And even if somebody tells you some form of an enquiry, some form of an answer, then it will just not have any effect, because the words will go through one ear and pass out through the other. Or they might excite some momentary emotion, some spurt of emotional exuberance which will die out within minutes, but will not be able to sustain us through life. This is the real reason why Yama stresses in this narrative, in this story, this one quality of integrity or dhi above everything else. And what does such a person with dhi do? Do mind, not what such a person thinks, not what such a person feels, but how does such a person act? And this is the answer given, Shreyo hi dhiro bhi priyasa vrinite. He chooses the longer term good or the longer term true over and above the short term pleasant or the short term desirable. And the other, the one who is lesser, prefers the pleasant. Preyo mando yogakshemat vrinite. The lesser person chooses the pleasant for what? Because of the fulfillment of desires. Some things that I don't have, I want to add to myself. This is yoga. And that which I have, I want to hold on to. This is kshema. So for the sake of yoga and kshema, for the sake of fulfilling my desires, and for sustaining what I have already, the lesser person prefers the pleasant to the good and the true. So this is the point at which we had stopped last time. And now let's get on with the new part. Yama said, that which is beyond never rises before the mind of a thoughtless child deluded by the folly of riches. This world exists, the other does not. Thinking thus, they come again and again under my power. To understand this truth is very difficult. Many, even hearing it continually, do not understand it, for the speaker must be wonderful, so must be the hearer. The teacher must be wonderful, so must be the taught. Neither is the mind to be disturbed by vain arguments, for it is no more a question of argument, it is a question of fact. This part has been quoted by Vivekananda, is a free translation of the Kathopanishad. So let's go back to the Upanishad and look at the original passages, and then we'll come back and try to expand on what exactly this means. Yeah. So in the Upanishad, there is one particular passage which is relevant here. And I think it's important, it's not something that's directly been talked about here in Vivekananda's lecture, but I think it's important. Avidyayam antare vartamana swayam dhiraha panditang manyamana dandramyamana pariyanti moodha andhe naiva niyamana yathandha. Avidyayam antare vartamana. See? Basically, it means if we introspect, then we see for ourselves, nobody has to tell it to us, where our ideal, where our things that we feel we are convinced of, is these things are not in sync with our actions. It needs a fair bit of introspective analysis to do this. It is only when one sees this that one will try to correct one's actions for oneself. Yeah? On the other hand, one could ignore our subjective actions, and having read a bunch of scriptures, a bunch of these spiritual books, so to speak, consider oneself, or literature or philosophy, consider oneself very learned. And Swayam Dhira Panditam Manyamana, that I am somebody who is equipped with this faculty of Dhi. I am somebody who is a Pandita, learned person. So literally, Pandita does not really mean learned person. Yeah, in another place, Shankara says, Panda iti Atma Buddhi. And so which means basically somebody who is equipped with this introspective intellect. So that somebody who has that faculty is called a Pandita. It's the same meaning as Dhira. Yeah? Swayam Dhira Panditam Manyamana. So, despite the fact that our actions are not measuring up to our beliefs, we consider ourselves Pandita or Dhiraha. Yeah. Which means basically we are deluding ourselves. We are being dishonest with ourselves. It's lack of integrity. Yeah. So why? Because these things are covered up. We try to cover these up in our own minds and pretend some things to ourselves. So in the previous paragraph, Vivekananda talked about pretensions. Despite all our pretensions, he had mentioned this, and it's essentially this. It's precisely this pretentiousness which leads to pretending to be things that we are not, instead of recognizing our own shortcomings and then trying to overcome them. I mean, the thing is, nobody is going to blame a person if one recognizes the shortcomings that the person has, because all of us have that. So this is this particular verse. And then he says, Na samparaya prati. This is what was translated by Vivekananda. Na samparaya pratibhati balam pramadyante vitta mohena moodham. Ayam loko nasti para iti mani punah punah vasham apadyate me. Yeah? So this is what was translated freely in this passage that we just read out. Na samparaye pratibhati balam, which means this that is not caught within the framework of senses of space and time is not something that is perceived. By whom? By bala. Bala literally means young people. It means basically the uncultivated mind. Here it literally means person incapable of introspective analysis. It does not mean age. A young person might be equipped with this deep introspective intellect, and a much older person might be very superficial and incapable of introspection. Yeah? But it's basically the quality of mind that is being talked about. Pramadyante vitta mohena moodham. Moodha means person again who is incapable of differentiating. Yeah? Moha, that's the word from which this word moodha. One who is under the thraldom of moha is called moodha. Yeah? So which basically again translated as aviveka, lack of discriminatory intellect, lack of analytical powers, lack of introspective analysis. And what does such a person think? Ayam loko nasti para iti mani. This world with its commonsensical perceptions is all that there is. Yeah? Proceeding with this kind of an instinctive belief, what happens to such a person? Punah punah vasham apadyate me. Comes repeatedly under the command of death, which means, essentially, it does not have to mean in terms of any theological reincarnation or whatever. It's basically at every moment, this person undergoes this experience of self-forgetfulness. Yeah? Pramado vai mrityu. I think in another famous passage, this is from the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, called the Sanat Sujatiya Samvad. In that, it said, Pramado vai mrityu. Pramada is this getting caught in this illusory daydreaming or lack of clarity, lack of capacity to hold on to the truth. Yeah. So what happens is that such a person repeatedly comes under this thraldom of this pramada or this self-forgetfulness. This is what is called death here. Yeah. It's exactly catching hold of that which will perish. That's what we call death, literally. Catching hold of that which will perish and convincing oneself, fooling oneself into thinking that these perishables are permanent. This is not something that is esoteric. We do it all the time. We act as if we are going to live on forever. We do not recognize the mortality of every single part of our physical being. What I was yesterday, I am not tomorrow. I am not today, and that will change tomorrow. This change in ourselves, this rapid progress towards decay and destruction is not something that we recognize. And whatever, 75, 80, 100, however many years we live, it's very short time in the scale of the universe. And we still think that this little short scale of time is what is going to be, is actually something that we regard as infinite. It's going to go on forever. Part of this is also biological. Our brain fools us into thinking that we are going to live on because the prospect of one's own destruction is very often something that is loathsome to oneself, but unless one faces it, one does not have a mature philosophy of life, which means this notion of death, in particular one's own death, my death, this needs to be integrated into one's own life without fear, without any emotional turmoil. Yeah, this acceptance as a natural culmination of life is what is being talked about here. If somebody does not do that, then this question, without that integration of death into life, this question that the Upanishad starts with, what is it that survives? What is it that outlasts death? It cannot be understood. So which means this is really what is explained by this metaphor of this young child, young Nachiketa, handling death face to face. Yeah? So I think many of you who have read Raman Maharshi in yourselves remember that when he was a young boy, he had this particular experience. One particular day, he suddenly had this uncanny fear of death overpowering him, which means he felt that this body is going to die and I am going to die with it. Because he was a personality with a very high quality of mind, he immediately detached himself and witnessed this experience. And then enquiry started. What is going to die? This body is going to die. And then it is going to be taken to the cremation ground. Fire is going to be applied to it. All the flesh, the skin is going to burn, and hair and flesh. And then all that we used to assign as our self-identity, namely this physical body and mind, all of that is going to get destroyed at death. But he, because this was something that he was doing with great earnestness, the urgency of the situation evoked this earnestness. He was still there, he says, despite this destruction, I am still there to witness my death. And so therefore, that which is seeing this whole experience and feeling it and seeing it is not something that is subject to death, is what is becoming clear. This is a subjective conviction. I think if you try to put it in objective terms, it's going to be impossible. Why? Because anything that can be objectified is mortal, is subject to death. However, because of this earnest introspective intellect, he caught hold of the subtle truths that these books are, these Upanishads are trying to explain to us. And essentially at that moment, this person's mind, Raman Maharshi's mind, is equipped with this faculty of extreme alertness, so that all that is phenomenal, basically changeful, is seen from a completely detached perspective. Yeah? And it goes on, the Upanishad, Shravanayapi bahubhir yona labhya. And this is the subtlety of this of these notions that is being explained here. Shravanayapi bahubhir yona labhya, Shrinvantopi bahavo yona yamna vidyu, Ascharya vakta kushalasya labdha, Ascharya gnata kushalanu. It's basically saying that even after hearing this many times, people don't grasp it. People don't grasp it as true. Yes, we have heard these words, but they just go around in our heads as words. We first don't feel it, and even if occasionally we do feel it, we are unable to carry it out in practice. That's what is being said here. And then, na narena avarena prokta esha suvigneyo bahudha chintyamanaha ananya prokte gatiratra nasti aniyan hi atarkyam anupramanat. Yeah? Basically says that if an inferior person, a person to whom this thing has not become true, these facts, these ideas that we are talking about have not become true in terms of thought, word, and deed, which means essentially has not been grasped by this faculty of dhi. In other words, somebody has not become dhira. If such a person says these things, then it is not something that people will respond to, because the person who's talking about it has not grasped it. Yeah? This ring of truth will not be there. What will such a person do? They will go on arguing in terms of logic chopping, so to speak. It says, Na esha tarkena mati apane. This is where the Vivekananda's passage concluded, and we'll start with this next time. It says, Naesha tarkena matir apaneya proktanyenaiva sugnaya preshta yang tvam apa satya dhritirvatasi twadrigno bhuyat nachiketa prashta. See, first it says, Naesha tarkena mati apaneya. Let's just go back to the original passage. And it says, neither is the mind to be disturbed by vain arguments, for it is no more a question of argument, it is a question of fact. And this is what is being translated. I mean, the original passage that is being translated is this, Naesha tarkena mati apaneya. Mati is this clarity of mind. It cannot come through vain argumentation. Vain argumentation is essentially this externally directed analog of introspective analysis. This sat asat vichara. What is it that is true versus what is untrue? And trying to hold on to that with one's whole personality. This is sat asat vichara. Instead, one could go on arguing. That external argument, one can win arguments thereby, but it's of no value. It's of no lasting value. That's what is being said here. Na esha tarkena mati apaneya. Prokta nyenaiva sugnaya preshta. Yam, but what about Nachiketa? What has happened to him is that he has actually evinced interest in the answer to this question, and he is, though he's a very young in terms of his number of years he's lived, he's clearly equipped with a very deep quality of mind which allows him to forsake all these joys and pleasures which would take the mind away from this one-pointed enquiry. So, yang tvam apa satya dhritir vatasi. Satya dhriti. See, there are two things. One is satya here, that which is true. Dhriti, again, it's the faculty of will. Yeah? Vivekananda talks about Jnana Yoga is this, it's essentially the analytical will of the philosopher. The will connected to this conviction in truth. So once the will is connected, the action reflects the conviction. In the absence of action, this belief or knowledge or so-called conviction is not really of any value. But Nachiketa has this quality, Satya Dhriti. Yeah? So his will is connected to this conviction of what is true. And therefore, he is capable of this introspective, deep analysis. He is capable of turning the mind within and finding an answer for himself to this question that he has posed. And so, Yama becomes eloquent here. Twadrikno bhuyat nachiketa prashta. May there be questioners like you. See, people who are sincere to the core. Deep conviction in that without an answer to this question, life is not worth living. And therefore, his whole mind focused on that question with full personality leading strength to it. See, when we were students, we had to go to these some of these machining shops where we had to do some of our laboratories. And there was some laboratory work, basically engineering design of tools. So there were these cutting tools which we would put on a lathe machine. And so that would have a sharp front edge, but it would be backed by something that was tempered steel and heavy. In the absence of that tempered heavy steel supporting the sharp blade, the blade would just get broken. So this sharp analytical intellect, introspective sharp analytical intellect is just the front edge. It needs to be supported by this solidity of emotional and volitional conviction, which means one feels according to those convictions, one acts according to those convictions. This is what adds solidity. Otherwise, it's just some flimsy intellectual thought which will, whenever a crisis arises, be blown away and broken and fragmented. Which is why one finds that people who talk very eloquently often, when a crisis comes into their lives, they are unable to handle them and they are crushed or broken. Yeah? So, but Nachiketa, even at this very young age, has developed this quality of integrity, this quality of dhi. And Shankara calls it Shraddha. Shraddha astikya buddhi. Buddhi again. Buddhi again is the faculty which unifies these through. Astikya. It means that there is truth in this and it will repay enquiry. Yeah? So this, first, this understanding that there is truth in it, and then willingness to enquire into it, come what may, without being waylaid by either fear or greed or desire. This quality of the mind is what's being called dhi, and Nachiketa has it, and therefore Yama says, may there be people, may there be questioners like you, because you don't question just because you want to hear a superficial answer and then hear it for the time being, go home and forget it. But you are asking this question, and I am convinced that you are going to act on the basis of these. Once you have found the answer for yourself, your actions and your feelings will be in consonance. Therefore, it's an integrated personality guided towards this higher goal of truth, which is led to this question, and therefore, may there be more questioners like you. We'll conclude here and we'll come back to this next time, because this is what we'll expand on. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.